Hello everyone and welcome to Business Banking and Beyond podcast. Well, this podcast is very special and close to me because this will not just speak about growing your business, but this is about protecting your business. Well, the question is how? Through compliances. Yes, the often ignored aspect of business by business owners, the compliances which are just followed for the sake of following the law, but it is more than that. Today we have very special guest who's an industry veteran, a compliance expert joining us. We have Mr. Rizwan joining us today to discuss on this topic. Starting from his educational background from Oxford to the Harvard University, he is not just veteran from this industry, but he's passionate about compliance. He's certified in almost all the courses related to compliance, starting from ACAMS, financial crime reporting from the top institutions of the world. About his work experience, he's been there in the industry from more than 20 years and he has been the chief compliance officer for some of the top institutions of the UAE. So let's meet Mr. Rizwan and understand how we can grow and protect our businesses. So let's get started with Mr. Rizwan. Sir, thank you so much for taking out time and coming here. We are really pleased to have you here. Such a person who has given so much time to compliance, to the country and to the education as well. As I know your background that you have been teaching, you have been in compliance for more than 2 decades or maybe more than that. And it has been really pleasure to have you. So first of all, welcome to our podcast, Business Banking and Beyond.
Thank you very much. Players is all mine, and it's a great opportunity. Today we are going to discuss little bit with you.
Well, definitely, because we need to help a lot of businesses out there related to compliance, and there cannot be anyone else better than you who can really simplify the compliance. So today our motto will be to discuss about the compliance for the businesses so they can get benefit in terms of following the regulatory laws, and internally they can follow the compliances to grow their business in the right way in the long term without much hassles. So let's get started. The first thing for today I want to ask you is, what exactly is compliance in a nutshell, in a simpler manner?
Actually, compliance basically in a nutshell, when we are talking about it's like a adherence with the law. So we need to adhere our business according to the regulatory expectation. So when we are moving forward into our business, so what we need to see, yes, we are also meeting the regulatory expectation, because this regulatory expectation is very important for the business perspective. Because as much as the business will become more regularized, so what will happen, it will create very useful impacts, further grow into the market. And it will give the trust to the all other counterparties, that they will have more trust that this business is totally compliance stringent business. So this is the way nowadays the expectations from the all businesses are like this, that what is the regulatory expectation, they need to follow that. Okay. And for that, the efforts needs to be incorporated into their business structures. Our economy, especially in UAE, it's a very flourish economy for the business. And here we we have the expectations that what the business we are conducting, it's properly legitimate and in accordance with the regulatory expectations.
So in a simple manner, if I have to put compliance, what exactly is compliance? Is adherence to the regulatory framework.
Perfect, yeah.
So it can be internal regulatory framework or it can be external by the law.
Yeah, actually, first of all, regulatory laws, we need to understand where they come from. Mostly internationally, when we look towards, so we have some intergovernmental bodies like FATF. They are giving some recommendations to the countries that they need to implement within their financial institution and within their DNFBP sector.
Okay, you mentioned FATF. Can you little bit tell what exactly?
FATF is a Financial Action Task Force. Is basically intergovernmental body which was established in 1989. And objective was to mitigate the risk of money laundering and terrorist financing and make business more secure from these type of the threats and the challenges. So therefore, this FATF, this intergovernmental body, they introduce some recommendations. and they have introduced 40 recommendations.
Okay. Well, that brings me to the most important and second point, which is what are the different type of compliances which a business needs to follow?
Yeah, when we are talking about obviously into the regulatory framework, we need to follow some standards. And these standards are coming from our authorities. And within our firms, obviously when any company is incorporated into any free zone or it's into the mainland, they need to follow the AML CFT laws and regulations.
AML and CFT laws.
Laws and regulations.
Anti-money laundering and counter finance terrorism.
Terrorism, yeah. So these are very important. So because we think if we will establish more internal controls, so we will stay away to the harm from these illicit transactions or the financial crimes. So this is therefore it is very much important.
So the number one is AML and CFT compliance.
Yeah, the rest one obviously there are some other guidelines also from the authorities which are also focusing towards the consumer protections.
Okay.
Which are also focused towards the anti-bribery and corruption.
Okay.
So so there are different frameworks in which they are guiding that to the new businesses which they needs to incorporate.
So if we were to speak one by one, if I first discuss on the AML and CFT, what businesses need to do to follow AML and CFT?
Yeah. So for the AML CFT, what the first step, obviously we need to establish as a business some policies.
Okay.
There should be some framework into the firm that they have some policies related to the AML CFT, like anti-money laundering and counter-financing of terrorism. So these policies is the very integral part. And what is stated into the business policies related to the AML framework, it also needs to be into the practicality in their implementation.
Okay.
So this is the first expectations which they need to establish at their end.
So basically you're trying to say that even if the AML CFT policy is written, which is written by the government itself and the company is also writing, but it has to be really followed by the team, by the staff of the company, right?
Yeah, it will be established by the company itself. They will establish a complete compliance framework in their businesses.
Okay.
As I told you, for the business prosperity and the health, they need to establish a compliance also, along with the business. So in which they will establish these policies.
Okay. Can you little bit detail on the AML and CFT policies and how it can be followed? And if not followed, what can be the repercussions of that?
Very valuable question you have asked. These policies, which we established, it will cover, let's suppose one business is going to be start. So at the point of inception, now what is the plan for this business, that which sort of customer they are going to onboard, what are their KYC procedures.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is information at the first level, how it will be collected on. And after that, how it will be monitored, into the businesses, which are the high risk customers, which are medium risk, which are the low risk. So these policies will help it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first compliance is AML and CFT, under which businesses need to comply? Are all the businesses under this, or there are some businesses we need to follow this compliance?
Yeah, actually, as I told you, in our framework, in our country framework, we have in each and everywhere, we have the AML CFT regulations, because mostly these regulations are coming from the cabinet resolution.
Okay.
Which we are having through the federal decree laws. First came 2018 and section 20. Then recently it is amended with the section 26 of 2021.
Okay.
So so this is there's a complete uniformity for the all sectors that they need to follow these cabinet resolutions.
Okay, so this will be applied to all the businesses across.
Yeah, it will be applied to all businesses.
Well, this is very important because a lot of times we don't understand whether I am exempted from this, whether this will be applicable for me. So the first most important compliance is AML CFT, and it applies to all the businesses which are getting formed in UAE.
Perfect. Yeah, it's like this.
And just to reconfirm the part, the AML and CFT law basically defines that the customers you are dealing with has to be the correct KYC proved. You have to check, you have to do your due diligence that you are dealing with the right counterparty, because again it says anti-money laundering and counter finance to terrorism. So both of the things you have to keep in mind, and you have to make your company's compliance frameworks so you know how your staff is dealing with that, because a lot of times the business owners are not at the front end, their staffs are at the front. So it is very important that you train your people. So if you can just shed a bit of light how you can really make this policy being worked by the front end people who are dealing with customer and making sure that their company is really following the rules.
Yeah, that's a great question. Like if you see the first line of, there are 3 lines of defense. And in which this is your first line.
3 lines of defense.
Yeah, this is your first line of defense.
Yes.
And in this first line of defense, obviously your customer counter staff, your business operations staff, your sales team, they are engaging. And now what is the mandatory part, as you also mentioned, that the education and awareness, what we need to give, first of all, it should be part of our policy, that our management wants that it should be incorporated with the all team members, those who are part of the first line of defense. So they should get some education in which they can learn what they need to do in, let's suppose, if they are engaging with some customers. So basic thing of the KYC, they have the understanding that this information we need to collect from our clients, and obviously we are not dealing with any harmful actors. We are always trying to incorporate and always legitimate businesses.
Protect the integrity of the company and the country both.
Yeah, both it is important. For the soundness, safety and soundness of the business, it is important that the first line should be properly educated, this one. And they should have this type of understanding, that they understand that what the compliance they are going to follow. So this is very much important. And in which the business management, they need to have little bit tone from their top. It's an important part and they need to follow it.
Sir, you have been group compliance head of the biggest exchange of UAE, and you have been in financial firms as a compliance head. So what were your tips to the front end guys or to the business owners that you should tell this, and these are some flags when you're seeing these kind of customers? Can you little bit tell about that as well?
Yeah, it's a very important question. Being a head of compliance or into the senior management position, like general manager for the firms. So in this, what is the requirement is this, that the culture needs to be established of the compliance within the firm. And how it will be established, the tone should be set from the top. The who is at the top, he needs to deliver this message. Yes, we want maximum revenues, but we want into the stringent and legitimate way. So that is the tone which everybody should understand.
Well, on that note, I would just say something. Well, हम इंडिया में बात करते हैं कि रेपुटेशन बनाने में बहुत टाइम लग जाता है, इज्जत कमाने में बहुत टाइम लग जाता है, बट वो जाने में आई थिंक compliance somewhere plays a bigger role there. You have a very good reputation in market from so many years, but just one person or one non-legitimate action happened in your company can really tarnish your reputation. So I think I'm on the right lines.
Yeah, you are very right. Honestly, sometimes it happens it is honestly, it's very difficult to earn a very huge respect into the market, because obviously there's a lot of efforts behind it. And it's not a one day story. It's a long story that what we have dedicated to the compliance and for the transparent and the legitimate business occurrence. So this is what we have done. But meanwhile, yes, you are very right. If you give the opportunity for the criminality in your businesses, so obviously it can be a big debacle, if we are not trying to cover it properly. So yes, it happens. And if you see in the past, sometime some financial institution, they came under some regulatory scrutiny also.
So, well, as per your first line of defense, we really need to empower are people who are at the front end dealing with clients, and we really need to give them education and empower them in a long term way, because the businesses need to be compliant. It will help us in a long way. So the second thing is about the second line of defense, and if you can little bit.
Yeah, one thing as you rightly said that we need to empower, and nowadays as the compliance is growing and enhancing too much, so expectations are like this first line needs to help out to the second line, which is the compliance line. So the culture is totally changed. So it's been like these two lines, the first line, your business functionality line and compliance line, they need to work in a combined effort. Whatever loopholes will come from the first line, so second line is there, the compliance line, which will able to detect and try to prevent and obstruct like those issues, the concerns which are coming from the first line. So as much as first line will be strong, so obviously compliance will also be very happy. And so therefore we need to keep educate like our first line, those who are engaged into the sales, like those who are into the business development, those who are into to establish some business arrangements. So we need to give them proper education. And second line compliance will take care of this thing that all the regulatory guidelines properly followed.
Here I have some immature thought in my mind, but it's better to ask it. When I was in bank, like 8 years I was there in bank, or even in my organization, or if I see other organizations, there is always a fight between the first line and the second line. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like the sales guy wants to do the business, or the front line wants to do some business, but compliance needs to restrict and be more compliant. How do we create a sync when the front end is bringing some data points and compliance is working on that? They need to be in sync. As you mentioned that they need to work in a coordination. So how we can bring this harmony between these two, first line and second line?
Yeah, one thing is this, the responsibility, I will start from the compliance side first. Responsibility from the compliance side is this, that they need to be very proactive and they need to dependent onto the research. Because sometimes what happens, because I'm also the head of compliance in the industry for a long time, what happens for some information we collect from the first line. So our approach should be this, that we need to research first, prior to take any decision. Because we never set precedents, into the court, what was decided into the last case, so they follow those one. But in compliance, every case is a different case, is a new case. And so for that, yes, abruptly to reject anything without any investigation, this is not, it will harmful for the business. So therefore, compliance officers, they need to be proper, first of all, they research this thing. If they think it is according with the guidelines, so they need to move forward with this thing. So this is one point. Second thing, which you are saying, that sometimes this misunderstanding happen between compliance and to the business functionality line. So to overcome this problem, the basic reason is this, that sometimes we never communicate so frequently with the first line. Exactly. So therefore there is a gap. So education and awareness we need to bring for them, that they can understand, yes, when they are onboarding any client, so they automatically understand this thing, that this is the mandatory part which they need to collect from the clients, and then they need to refer it to the compliance. But if they are not having complete knowledge of this thing, so these type of gaps sometimes arise.
Basically, I think I got my answer. It is again boiling down that your compliance has to be so versatile and at the same time so strict as well, that when your first line is dealing with it, they are having that flexibility to know everything. They are educated by the compliance managers with the company policies. So they are in harmony with compliance team and your second line of defense, but at the same time they're strict as well. So basically there is no compliance issues here. There is a communication gap. There is an education gap. So if your compliance is strong enough to pass that education, continuous communications, so there'll be always harmony between the growth and business of the company plus the legitimacy of that business.
Yeah, one thing little bit, I will try to refine the words, it's not strict we will use the word balanced. Compliance officer needs to be more balanced, in which his approach is more effective, proportionate, and and also flexible. So where he can produce desired results. So this is a one part, and because sometimes if functionality line, the first line, they are getting some trouble, they are not able to decide this thing. So compliance should be open to guide them. And yes, one word which you have used, strong compliance is required. Strong compliance is required.
I have never ever seen this kind of simple and so strong information given to me. I have been in industry since so long in terms of banking. Whenever I would sit with compliance, I would get a bit of scaredness the way the message is being passed on to me. Thank you so much. The way you have passed on, really it opened my eyes that compliance is not something which is restricting your business. It is helping your business. But again, how do you hire your compliance managers? It depends on that. If you hire someone who's just proving his position to restrict the business, to maybe manipulate or do something with the business functionality, or he's someone who's educating, who's working together with business functionality and making sure that right business is coming, not it is stopping.
Very right. That's the point.
Well, thank you so much for that. I hope many of the businesses after listening to this will be able to understand that hiring the right compliance manager is the key. Putting the right information, putting the right communication to the first line of defense is the most prominent thing.
Yeah. And one thing I would also like to add, we have the third line of defense also, which is independent testing.